Good evening.
Good evening.
It's good to be back. And
Thank you.
thank you. I want to start by improvising something. And I need your help today. I have a friend, his name is Greg Porper. He makes movies. And he came out with a movie recently called Don't Tell Larry. It's a dark comedy. And we shared in high school, we shared a very quirky sense of humor, still do. The main tune of this movie is called I'm Just a Raisin. It goes like... It's funny and silly, but it's also a little bit menacing at the same time. What composer would you like to hear that in the style of?
Beethoven.
Beethoven. Couple more. This is fun. Someone else, different, another composer. Tchaikovsky. Well, that's easy. I mean, I just do. I was trying to do that in the style of the first concerto. I don't know if it really completely worked, but let's do maybe one or two more short ones. This
Shostakovich.
is Shostakovich. Whoa. Okay. Good choice.
Chopin.
Okay. After I'll do Shostakovich. Is it Chopin? did Chopin maybe next time. I just, well, if you asked for, okay, this will be the last one. This will be the last one. So in the style of Chopin, and then we'll do the real part. So. I'll do one more piece that's unusual because I'm making it a habit to try to play things that I wrote more often in public. I find it embarrassing because it's like, I don't know, hearing your own voice on a recording. And I thought I'd play you something. This is a rather quiet piece. I tend to write quiet stuff and perform louder things. This is just called Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. We went there. Actually, we went pretty recently. Again, we like that beach. But we went on a trip there 2 years ago on New Year's. And it was empty and very, very cold and windy. And my kids went to take a nap, and I have this practice piano, this folding thing. I use it to practice when I go somewhere. And I was sitting and practicing, and I looked out at the ocean, and you know how the sky is in winter? This orange sunlight, and it was really striking. It was beautiful, a little bit scary too. I mean, it was, and I just wrote this thing because I felt it's what I saw, you know. So let's see how this thing goes. I need the music. I don't memorize what I write. Isn't that funny? Okay. This is Mendelssohn on Wings of Song, Felix Mendelssohn. And because I don't sing in German, sorry, this is a piano solo arrangement by Liszt. And Mendelssohn was born in 1809. He was such a child prodigy. I've heard people say even more than Mozart. And a true child prodigy is not only the child who's skilled at the instrument, but who really will move you, that they're mature beyond their years. And that was Mendelssohn, for sure. He had that. And I think, I didn't know him personally because of, the time he lived, but I think he was the most genuine person without any artifice around him. That's what he was remembered for being. And it shows in his music. There's something very, very genuine there. Mendelssohn suffered quite a bit from his background. He was Jewish, and he eventually converted due to the anti-Semitism at the time. He lived in Saxony, it's now Germany, and especially at that time it was really tough. Furthermore, yes, the name Mendelssohn is, he's very much respected, but I won't get into the details too much, but Wagner, who was incredibly anti-Semitic and racist, Wagner really put this stain on Mendelssohn's reputation by saying his music was not, nonsense, really. It's nonsense. Wagner wrote some great music himself, but he was, anyway, not a wonderful fellow. So here is Mendelssohn, on Wings of Song, and it's a beautiful piece. It speaks for itself. So here it is. some of Schumann's arrangements of Paganini. Some of these I've done here before, some I haven't. I'm learning the second set, which Schumann wrote a bit later. But so some context on these pieces. Schumann was the first, I think, I'm pretty sure, he was the first to take Paganini's solo violin caprices and adapt them for piano. Because many followed, like Liszt and Brahms and many others, but Schumann was first. And, you know, Paganini was this divisive figure in music. You either loved him or you hated him. He was like a rock star of the time. I think of Elvis or Little Richard or somebody. Because with those musicians, more recent, like you either loved them or you hated them when they came out. And it was the same with Paganini. But the Romantics, who were a little bit later, they were born a little bit after Paganini had been born. They just admired and almost, they idolized him. You know, it's funny because talking about the music of the 50s and such, and 60s and 70s, a lot of the musicians were, you know, the baby boomer generation. They were not born in that generation. They were born before. Like the Beatles were all born in 1940, 1941, and then they were the music of people born in 1955 or something, right? So it's kind of similar in a way with Paganini, who was born before Schumann and Liszt and all of them. So I'm going to start with the two comic ones. Paganini had this great sarcastic sense of humor, you know. And I think, I don't know if I forgot to mention that the people who did not like him, they claimed that he was possessed. And so this piece has a nickname, the Devil's Laugh. Because it really sounds like an evil laugh, you know. Thank you. Another one that's comic, but in the middle is angry. Think of a person who snaps easily, or a pet dog, maybe you know some, who are friendly and kind, and I don't know, you touch their ear the wrong way and they go berserk. And I bet Paganini was like that as a person, but again, I didn't know him either, so. He was born in 1790s, I think, so, okay. Even before Mendelssohn, so here it is. Thank you. One or two more of these. These are from the second set now because Schumann did that was from Opus 3. And then he waited a while and then did Opus 10, more arrangements of Paganini. And I wonder, was he going for arranging all 24 caprices? Because he didn't. He did about half. So something to think about. I wonder. Maybe I have to look that up. Maybe there's an answer to that. This next one reminds me very much of a Chopin piece, an etude called, the nickname is the Aeolian Harp, this piece. And here's the Paganini arranged by Schumann. Similar, right? It's in the same key, it's sort of the same mood of flowing water or something. And I think it's because these guys breathed the same air and they wrote similar things. They weren't plagiarizing, it was just that similar things came out. And I think that's the case, because this is very, very similar to that piece, the mood and everything. Here it is, pretty new for me. Okay, so it's a little bit of a Paganini focus for me now, because so many piano composers based piano music off of Paganini's violin works. I love the Schumann arrangements, and they're hardly ever played, these pieces. You hear them on the violin, obviously, but Schumann did beautiful arrangements, and he arranged a lot of, like, in the past I've played you Liszt's arrangements. Sure, those are flashier, for sure, but Schumann arranges a lot of the Paganini caprices that Liszt did not, like that one. And I've come to this feeling, like they're very tricky pieces. They're just awkward for the hands like crazy. Even that one, it didn't sound maybe too crazy, but it's just, you know, but I think that they're more in like pastel colors. That's how I feel about them now. The last few days I've realized that they're not loud and bombastic things. They're sort of, you know, a little bit, not impressionistic, but they're just a little watercolory maybe. And that's the mood. Now I'm going to play something that's definitely not that. It's heavy, you know, roast beef and potatoes. I don't recall if I played it for you here yet. Maybe I did once and it was new, but this is the Brahms Variations on a Theme by Paganini, Book 1. This is a truly crazy piece. Fire and brimstone. I started with very calm stuff, and this is just anything but calm. Brahms knew Robert and Clara Schumann quite well. He was practically adopted by them. He walked up to their doorstep as a young man looking for advice, and the Schumanns said, just come in, and he didn't leave for a few years. Yeah, how do you like that? People were different in the 19th century. And Brahms was there helping the family. It was a big family. He assisted them as Robert Schumann's mental and physical health deteriorated. It's really quite sad. Schumann had bipolar disorder, and it was really quite sad how he ended up in the end. He developed a very close relationship with Clara Schumann. They exchanged letters throughout their lives. Clara Schumann was a great musician herself and gave him a lot of advice. And some people speculate if there was some romantic feelings there, or maybe they even dated. I don't know. It's not my business to, you know. But you know, I'm not the gossip column. So, but in the quiet moments of this, I feel there's some sense of unrequited love, maybe. Like, I don't know, there's something in there. Brahms was kind of a loner most of his life, because I think it was his dedication, his friendship, admiration, and possibly more for Clara. Brahms was a paradox, I think. That's how I think of him. He was from Hamburg, North Germany. I was talking to a lady whose husband is from Hamburg. And she said she went many years ago to a family reunion. And there were two sisters there who had been, I think one had ended up in like East Germany and the other stayed in West. And they reunited after 30 years. So Hamburg is not the place where you show your heart on you wear your heart on your sleeve. You don't do that there. You know how the sisters greeted each other? No hug, no screaming and yelling. No, this is how they greeted each other. And then they walked away. The stiff upper lip, you know, the British thing. But it doesn't mean that the feeling's not there. It's there in here. It's just that you don't show it. That's the culture, I think. And that's what Brahms was like. That's what his music is like. Some people say, oh, his music's cold. That's nonsense. There's a volcano inside. Well, this piece is just purely volcano, most of it. The early piece of his, relatively. So, Brahms wrote these variations originally to be exercises. Sadistic exercises for the fingers. Really sadistic. And he liked how they sounded musically. So he arranged it, he adapted it to be a concert piece. But it's also just a set of studies to bust your fingers, you know, just crazy. So it's based on the famous 24th Caprice. So those Schumann pieces I played, those are all 1 through 23, right? Assorted from there. This is 24, the caprice number, the final caprice for solo violin. So, by the end, you don't hear much Paganini, you hear Brahms. And I'll tell you, like, the paradoxes with Brahms, I mean, his music can be so serious and so like heavy, you know, but at the same time he lived in Vienna mostly, befriended Hungarian gypsies. This is Austro-Hungary. Why did he write stuff like this? So he had a playful side. He liked beer too, you know. And his best buddy was Johann Strauss Jr., who was much younger than him, but was much older than him rather, but looked much younger. There's photos of them. Brahms, you know, in his later years, he had this big beard. He looked like Santa Claus, and he was fond of cigars. And, you know, yeah, there's a story that Strauss, who wrote the Blue Danube, you know, the opposite of anything Brahms wrote in style, and he left the sheet music on his coffee table, and Brahms, with a very serious face, he took it, and with a pen he wrote, "Unfortunately not composed by Brahms." So, here is the Paganini Variations, Book 1. Book 2 is coming. short piece based on the same Paganini. It's a part of Rachmaninoff's Paganini Rhapsody, the 18th variation. And what he does in the 18th variation is he takes that motive, flips it upside down. New melody. Yes, famous. And it's used in a lot of movies and such. Rachmaninoff wrote this in the 1930s. And by this time, he'd already left Russia. After the Communist Revolution, he left in 1917, never to return. And to me, this piece is just so heavily nostalgic. I envision this as like a dream of returning home. And even if you are not an exile from a country, another country, we're all missing home in this similar way, because home is more of a time than a place. I went to visit where I grew up, I mentioned before, New Jersey. It's all different. I can go there, but it's not the same. And so in a small way, I thought about Rachmaninoff's experience and feeling dislocated, because home is something you can't go back to, right? There's that novel by Thomas Wolfe, North Carolina writer, You Can't Go Home Again. So. One more classical piece to close, something really fun and upbeat. So I'm going to play Zigeunerweisen, or Gypsy Airs, by Pablo de Sarasate, who's a Spanish composer. It means, yeah, it's a gypsy piece, gypsy music. And it's very famous, you probably recognize it, and you've probably heard it on violin. The piano arrangement here is done by a guy named George Enescu, or Georges Enesco when he lived in France. He was Romanian originally. And Enescu is this overlooked genius. He, by the way, was not only a composer, he was a violinist and a pianist, and he did it all. And I complain that I can't learn violin because I'm too lazy. I have no excuse. So this piece goes in stages, gradually getting a little more intense, a little faster each time. In the beginning, it starts with this is the cymbalum. Well, it doesn't sound that bad, but the sonority of the cymbalum is this folk instrument from Eastern Europe, is something like this. But it's, in the piano, that's actually what it sounds like, but the notes are right, so. And then you have these slow dances, like this one. Moderate slow dances, and then at the end you have this lively fast dance, like it ends in that spirit. So here is the Zigeunerweisen gypsy airs or gypsy songs. to close, as usual, with gospel, and I'll play today something I'm working on. It's hard to get this. It's a work in progress. It's an old spiritual sung by Mahalia Jackson, How I Got Over. She sang this at the March on Washington in 1963. Trying to replicate her voice is impossible. But I'm obsessed with this idea of the piano trying to imitate something like the violin or the voice or something. I feel like you learn a lot because the piano, as someone said, by itself is just a box with hammers and strings. If you can make it sound like a voice or a violin, then you're on your way to something. That's what I'm trying to do with it. I feel like I keep failing, but you keep trying. So here it is. I'm going to should start in higher octaves. Maybe just one last one to close with gospel. I hope I can remember the way to do this, but In the Garden. tonight, and thank you as always, and I'll see you on a Friday next month.
Okay.
So it'll feel more like a Friday then, because it's not Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We enjoy this.
Oh.